Hi, Tom Walls, Carbide Processors. Another video on how to buy a good saw blade, since it keeps coming up over and over, and it's important. This is one of our popular tool saw blades. This is an extremely good saw blade, in spite of the price. It's an extremely good saw blade at an extremely good price. Anyway, one of the things we look at when we examine a saw blade, and one of the things anybody can look at, is the brazing. And this is the carbide tip. This is the steel saw body. Between it is kind of a goldish, grayish gold line. Used to be gold, and they sandblasted it after brazing to clean it up. What you want to do is you want to look at that line, and this line, and this line, and this line. That should be a fairly thin line. It should come out onto the saw plate a wee small amount, few thousandths of an inch, 10 thousandths of an inch, 15 thousandths. Don't get hung up on an exact measurement. Should come out on the plate a little bit. We did some R&D, some cooperative research with Black & Decker years ago. Their figure is that a little braze alloy here creates a fillet which increases strength about 40%, which I don't have any reason to doubt it, and it makes sense. Anyway, what you want to see is you want to see a thin line, an even line, and it should be the same all the way around. The closer they are to identical, the more manufacturing consistency there was on the saw blade. Let me get another saw blade for you. This is also a good saw blade. This is an industrial saw blade. I don't know how much you can see on this. Probably not much. On this one, now, part of what you see here is you see a little more discoloration behind the tip. Do not get sucked in by that. That is simply because this saw blade was not sandblasted as much as the popular tools, so it's not quite as pretty. What you want to look for, if you can see it at all here, is the same thing we had before there. Right there, let's see, where is it? Right here, you can see a black spot behind the tooth. Right there. Right there, you can see a black spot behind the tooth. That is a gap between the carbide tip and the steel saw body. It's a gap in the braze alloy, and that gap, let's see, what's right there. There's another one. These gaps are there probably because of a cleanliness issue. If you do not get the saw plate totally free of oil and grease before you braze it, the oil or grease or whatever is going to burn. It's going to create a carbon layer, and the braze alloy will not stick to the carbon layer. You can still have a good saw blade. It can still function well. It's just not the best way to do it. Second thing is you want to look at the flow behind the tip. The flow behind the tip should be a nice even flow, pretty close to identical from tip to tip to tip. This one has kind of a bulge behind it. You can maybe see it here at the bottom. You see another imperfection on that tip there. I can't believe, yeah, this is pretty bad. These are probably clear on the blog. Anyway, they're bulges. If the plate is totally clean and the braze alloy kind of feathers out onto the plate, it gets sucked out on. If the plate is not completely clean, the braze alloy kind of balls up, like, think of it like spitting on a grill. It's sort of the same effect. One last thing you look for is you look for little round holes in the braze alloy. There was one I saw on here. Anyway, what happens, braze alloy has zinc in it. It's a temperature suppressant. As the zinc boils at a really low temperature, it fumes before it boils, like steam comes out of boiling water. Before the water boils, that zinc can come out and create a bubble. If you see a perfectly round hole like part of a sphere, it's probably from zinc boiling. A couple of small ones are not a big deal. If you see too many or real big ones, it's probably a sign of poor temperature control. Again, you can have some of this stuff. Both saw blades I showed you can function just fine. I think they probably will. But if you're going to buy a saw blade, I would suggest that you go with a saw blade that has better manufacturing control, better process control, and more attention to detail. Just makes sense. Particularly if that saw blade is our popular tool saw blade and it's less expensive. So that's it. Thank you. Bye.